Perfect. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've already got quite a few people here in the attending with us. And so as people kind of trickle in, we'll let them come in. But welcome, everyone. This is pretty exciting. This is our first of a series that we're starting. We're calling it the Client Book Champions webinar. Ideally, what we want to do is host these webinars on at least on a monthly basis to share best practices and invite guest speakers to come in and share what they've learned in their stores and some of their best practices and how they've utilized Client Book in their stores. So we get a lot of current clients that either when they're onboarding or even if they've utilized this for a couple of years, they'll ask us like, hey, how do other retailers utilize Client Book? What are some best practices that you can share? So that kind of what sparked this idea. So this is going to be an ongoing webinar series. So be on the lookout for invites for next month's webinar and our guest speaker coming up next month. But just some housekeeping items first before we jump into it, and I introduce Celia here. You should be muted on your end. However, if you have questions throughout the presentation, please utilize the Q&A section. So down on the bottom of Zoom there, you should see an option where it says like chat, and there should be one specifically for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please utilize that feature. Just kind of a breakdown how this webinar is going to work is the majority of the time, Celia and I are going to be sharing those best practices. Ideally, that will be for Celia to share. But the majority of the time is going to be dedicated to that. So we have about 45 minutes scheduled for this webinar. We would imagine about 30 minutes of that will be dedicated to Celia to share kind of her insights, and we'll have that open dialogue, that conversation going. But we'll make sure at the end to save about 15 minutes or so for questions. With that said, during the presentation, if there's something that comes up that you want answered maybe a little bit more immediately, please don't hesitate to throw that into the Q&A. On this call as well as one of our panelists, we have Keegan. He's one of our senior CSMs on this call as well. So he'll be monitoring the Q&A and he'll answer questions throughout the presentation. He'll also grab my attention and interrupt me, and we can maybe answer those questions in the moment so that way we just don't lose track of that. But please make sure to write questions down, and just know at the end of the presentation, we're going to have dedicated time to have a little bit of a Q&A. So just a little bit about me as well. My name is Josh. I'm one of the team lead managers here at Clientbook. So I oversee some of our more mature clients. So anyone that's outside of their onboarding, stages of implementing Clientbook. So my team and I are introducing this webinar again to share those best practices. So to kick things off, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see all of our wonderful faces. So with us today, we have Celia. I don't want to introduce too much. So Celia, if you just want to go ahead, take it away, introduce yourself, your role, who you work for, anything that you want to share, just share a brief introduction of yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm super honored to be the first guest speaker on such a lovely platform. I am currently with CD Peacock. We are in Illinois. I am the director of CRM, store marketing and events. Previously to this role, I was a store director for one of our locations. And prior to that, I was with Nordstrom for over 12 years in several assignments, several locations. And, as I was sharing with Josh in many of our calls, I love our weekly chats that we have. What I love most out of all of my experiences is that, and what excites me is being able to support a team and really finding those tools to make it easier for them to work smarter and not harder.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much with that. So yeah, to kind of kick things off. So Celia and I, as she mentioned, we've been meeting on a weekly basis now. How long have we been? It's probably been what, 2 or so months now that we've been meeting on a
Yeah,
weekly basis.
probably.
It's been a fun little journey. It's been great. And so we've been, implementing Client Book and stuff. And so one big question that we get a lot, Celia, from our retailers is this idea of adoption. We have a lot of store managers or store owners that purchase Client Book, but then down the line, they're having a hard time like having their associates adopt Client Book. And so that's kind of what I wanted to start off this webinar, maybe asking that question first of, when it came to adopting Client Book, and you shared some experiences too, and especially with being a Rolex retailer, there was some hesitation there from your associates, but What was that like introducing Clientbook to your team? And what were some of those things that you were able to either introduce or implement that got them over that hurdle of utilizing Clientbook?
Sure. I'm actually embarrassed to share. We've actually had Client Book for what, 3 years, maybe almost 4 years, Josh? Is
It's
that
been a
right?
while. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a
So,
long journey up until now.
right. And I've only been with the company, I want to say about 18 months. So, I wanted to first, of course, understand our culture, how our sales teams operate on a daily basis. What are those habits and disciplines that they already have implemented? And as I was observing, I just realized, gosh, we are definitely not working smarter. There was paper trail everywhere. We used client cards, and I would find them throughout the store or in these little private drawers, if you will. And I, asked myself, is this efficient? And number two is this the best way to collect customer information to where we can go back and truly build a relationship with each of these individuals that walked into our doors, right?
Mhm.
So once we had another training with Client Book, and again, we kind of idled that training. It probably was a few months before we just really sat down and said, team, what can we do to really incorporate all of the walk-ins to at least a one-time purchaser, right? And when we understood the conversion rate, oh my gosh, I think that was an aha moment for everyone, including myself. We were probably operating closer to about a 10 to 12% conversion rate. And with that said, I can only assume, we didn't collect that profile. We weren't doing the follow-up for those walk-ins. And, I kind of use the word ghosts because they're pretty much ghosts, right? They walked in, they walked through the store. We probably spent anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour with them. If they didn't make that purchase, were we creating those profiles? And how do you follow up with a ghost if we don't have that information, right? So, when we spoke to it from that level, everyone had the same question as I. Well, how do we do better? Right. And that's when we decided Client Book, why aren't we using it? What's the obstacles? What are our challenges? And how can we get the team all on board? And that's when I started to really work closely with Josh. He's been such an amazing partner. Every question I have in the moment, I'm sending him an email and he's responding within sometimes minutes, even on weekends. So I really appreciate that so much because, again, when you're starting a new behavior with a team, you want to get their buy-on, you want to build that trust, and Josh has been so supportive of that. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I didn't mean to fish for any compliments, but I definitely appreciate that. And that's what we're here for, right? We have a dedicated CSM team to partner. Like we want to feel like extensions of your business. So for me, when I log into your account every week and I see that reminders are being completed, your attributed sales are going up, a number of messages are being sent, you're now utilizing mass messaging, all that little stuff, like I feel like a personal victory as well. I'm like, this is amazing. I love seeing it utilized. So but with that said too, so yeah, so coming back to those hurdles then, so one thing that we had talked about earlier this week too that you had heard from your team was specifically they're like, hey, but they only respond to my personal cell phone number. Up until that
Yeah.
point, your team was used to using their personal cell phones or maybe whatever other communication device. So what was that kind of experience like of, having associates say like, well, they only respond to my personal cell to now not almost exclusively, but yeah, like your messaging has skyrocketed in the last couple months. Like, what was that
Well,
experience like?
yeah, we had multiple, shall we say, pushback and hurdles. So of course, we had folks that said, I've been using my personal cell phone for years. We did get work cell phones at the beginning of last year. So that was another obstacle, was converting from our personal cell phones to our work cell phones. And then several months after that is when we really chose to go the route of Clientbook and utilizing that. So it was kind of two hurdles there. And then, of course, everyone has their own habits, right? And I always just say, because we have such a diverse group on our teams, from age to experience, um, uh, even from what levels of clients they have, right? And what's that book of business look like? So I joke and I always say that, those habits and listening skills really just have no age discrimination, right? They just kind of have their own way, and it's really hard to get them to understand a curve of change. But I think what we've been dealing with the most was with Clientbook was everyone can see our outreach, and that was something that was our plan at the beginning. And that was the biggest pushback that we received when first launching Clientbook. And to be quite honest, when we really started using it, I said, you know what, let's just overlook that hurdle and let's see if that's even an obstacle. And if we can get folks to even use it, then we'll move to the other package. And now it's so funny is that everyone's wondering, is it better to go back because there's some other pieces that and components that come with that, right? So because they realize that who cares? Like, who cares what everyone else is saying? And in fact, we're learning some verbiage from each other that might be better for ourselves. So it's interesting that when they get the buy-on, we build the trust, and we're helping them to see that it actually can be beneficial for them, is where they start to use it, right? Because we all want to know, well, what's in it for me, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. And especially, I don't know what the full like structure is like for your team, but most folks are on this call, from I understand, a lot of sales associates are commission based, right? And so as we're implementing these changes, that's the ideal, right? Is utilizing a platform like Clientbook allows you to increase the number of sales, and that directly impacts the sales associate, right? If you're able to increase sales, then that obviously increases your commission, right? So yeah, it's interesting to hear those like different hurdles. And it's funny hearing that, as like, because I remember when I flew out there and that was a big hurdle, right? Of like, well, everyone
Mhm.
can see my conversations, and now people are like, now that we've limited that where they can't see conversations, now it sounds
Yeah.
like, oh, we want to go back because it makes sense. So
Yeah.
but with that said too, so pivoting a little bit too, so I know one of the big features that we really dug our heels into, that you implemented, that you've been kind of not force feeding, but you've been really pushing for, is sales opportunities. And I know there's something specific that you had implemented with sales opportunities that you found as a big win for your associates. So do you want to talk maybe a little bit about sales opportunities, implementing that, and then some of the things that you configured on the back end that you have found most beneficial when utilizing that feature?
Yeah, I think it just goes hand in hand with what I was addressing earlier about the ghosts, right? If we don't create those profiles, or at least confirm that they do have a profile within our system, and then I always push that at that moment, that's a great time to confirm that all the information we have is accurate, right? They might have moved, they might have changed cell phones, they might have a new email address. Just confirm all of that in that moment. But also, as you are asking those probing questions, what brought them in, I really suggest that they start an opportunity then, right? Is it a special occasion? Is it because they came in for one of our vendors? Is it because they just happen to be browsing and they're thinking an engagement 6 months from now? Whatever that reason might be, is starting that opportunity then, right? Because at the end of the day, not only is this a CRM tool, but it's also a way to really follow up with our leads. Anyone that walks through that door may not make a purchase today, but how are we following up with them? And what does that even look like? What are those steps? And that opportunity, I think, is that entry, the key of to follow up. And what we've decided to do is create an auto message that comes the next day of every and each opportunity. So we just did new verbiage, if you will, for each one. And it's been super helpful because that continues the dialogue and the conversation as to what they brought them in yesterday.
Absolutely. And so for everyone that's listening to this call as well, I shared my screen. So this is the app version of Clientbook. So this is what it would look like if you were to sign into CD Peacock right now, right? And so this is my, well, this is actually my dog, by the way, but when I added in a profile, it's like, oh, I'll just add Cedar in there. So what we're talking about here too, so specifically a feature sales opportunities, right? So there may be folks on this call as well that were not integrated with their point of sale system. But regardless if we're integrated or not integrated, this feature functions with or without that integration, right? So the added benefit that Celia is mentioning here, right? So when you create that sales opportunity on the client's profile page, it's easier for you, the sales associate, to keep track of all of those clients that you've talked to. Again, to your point, and this has been my experience too, whenever I've had an opportunity to go travel around the nation and visit with my retailers, I typically sit at the associate's desk and yeah, I'll notice all these like post-it notes and all these papers everywhere with names and numbers on them. And I remember one time I was sitting with an associate and I pointed at a piece of paper where there's a name and number on it. I said, "Who's this client and why do you have their name and number?" And they pulled it up and they're like, "I honestly don't remember who this is or why I need to reach out to them." So what Clientbook does, it helps consolidate it and just make it a little bit more user friendly. So when you create those sales opportunities, the first thing that you can do is you can generate those auto reminders, right? So the sales associate, when they log into Clientbook, they'll see those sales opportunities, all those clients that they're working with here. And then Clientbook, I always think of it as your personal assistant, right? Your personal assistant will gently nudge you and say, "Hey, it's been 2 days. You should follow up with Cedar. It's maybe been 2 weeks. Let's follow up with Cedar," right? And so you can customize it. This is what CD Peacock has found most beneficial. And then the really big win that they've noticed for their associates is that you can also automate messages. So when I created the sales opportunity for Cedar, it automatically is going to trigger an auto message to go out to them within 24 hours, right? So again, as your clients are coming in and chances are they're going to look at some of your other, competitors maybe down the street. Just how powerful would it be if that within, that short time frame they get a message from you just, "Hey, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it." It really adds that personalized touch. Would you agree, Celia?
Absolutely. And, depending on your foot traffic and how many potential clients or leads that you have per day, it's hard to remember. It's sometimes hard
Hmm.
to remember those conversations or what were those talking points that you guys had or something to remember each client by. That really is so helpful to maintain a conversation the next day.
Hmm. Absolutely. So within here as well, within the profile, it's really easy. You can go into the sales opportunity and edit these notes. You can add notes to it, right? So exactly, you can mention some key indicators, right? Like what is Cedar's daughter's name, or is there any special event or anything? What is this opportunity for? Do they come in for a special life event, or is there something special coming up that they want to celebrate this occasion with jewelry for? So a lot of really cool things that you can utilize these sales opportunities for. But ultimately, what I preach a lot too, and I gathering from you as well, is it just helps you and the team stay more organized. So,
Yes.
any other insights when it came to adoption or specifically sales opportunities that helped your team? I know Cindy on your team got a special shout out as well. It kind of goes in line with keeping everything organized. But any specific like wins or opportunities that you saw there that you want to shout out while we're still on the subject?
Yes. So, to be quite transparent, Cindy came to us with from a different company. And when we were launching a CRM tool, I asked her what her previous companies used, and it was another company, if you will. And then so I asked her to be kind of a point person for me because I wanted to be able to compare what Clientbook um, how does that rate to her previous? And to be quite honest, the functionalities are all there. And I love the fact that this one seems to be a little bit more catered to what we do, and it's a little easier to navigate as well. And so she really adapted to this very quickly. She was another person that was able to speak to what really works for her, and that helped the team to also hear from a peer. Um, Another great success story is that we put in a 6-month cleaning auto message that goes out. So, and so we've had a couple folks that's come in and said that they just got this text message for cleaning, and it turned into an engagement, potential engagement sale and a watch sale. I had another person that came in for the cleaning, and that turned into a repair sale. So that's just two from just the cleaning, which is great.
Yeah, no, thanks for that call out too. Yeah, so there's aside from these sales opportunities, right? We can go into the back end and automate these messages to go out. And with that said too, something that you had mentioned earlier this week as we're preparing for this like webinar as well is, yeah, there may be a few times that clients will like reach out, maybe a little bit confused, or maybe not even like frustrated, right? But they may just kind of come back with like a maybe like a little bit like a what's the word I'm looking for? Just I don't know what the word I'm looking for, right? But they may reach out and just maybe a little bit like, what's this message? Like, why am I getting this message? Like, please stop or whatever. But you had mentioned too, it's just like out of the thousands of messages that get sent out,
Sure.
right? It's very a small portion of them that do come back with you just like maybe a little bit confused of why you're sending them a message. But then
Yeah.
again, you pointed out is we get a lot of retailers that will are a little bit hesitant to send automated messages, but the benefit is you reach out to clients you normally wouldn't reach out to. And yeah, you can net a bridal sale, a watch sale, or maybe even just like a repair opportunity where I think you said they came in for a cleaning, but then when you're looking at it, you're like, hey, we should really repair this. And that ended up being
Right.
like a repair job. Yeah. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as I mentioned earlier, that our team comes with so much experience, some that are brand new sales associates to veterans that have been, in sales for decades. And I think we all get a little blindfolded, or we just assume that our clients are so loyal and they only shop with us, and they don't shop competitors, or they don't shop online. Oh gosh, they only shop with me, and that's really unrealistic, right?
mhm.
So I think when we share with them that this helps us to stay in touch is between the automatic messages that we have already set in place, or for those opportunities, or something that we have set for 6 months from now. It just really helps the customer to keep us top of mind, right? And that's where I think the biggest buy-on was for our veterans, even because again, it's kind of taking some of that, as you mentioned, it's like being a personal assistant. Not
Mhm.
only does it keep us on task per day with all of our to-dos, but it also speaks for us occasionally, if you will. So,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. There's really no other way to say it. When I talk about it, it's funny. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, you are so excited about this tool. I love it. I love anything that can help our salespeople do more, spend, make more, sell more, build a bigger, stronger book of business. And really, at the end of the day, we have, again, as I speak to different levels of our sales folks, and maybe we have people that no longer need to have as many walk-in customers and start that whole new relationship building. But at the end of the day, we all know that sometimes life happens and we may lose our top customers for whatever reasons. We still need to have that one or two walk-ins occasionally and build a new bucket of business. And that's another tool that this provides for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And that kind of pivots as well, which one thing I wanted to highlight as well. So you're one of our few retailers that started off with our beta, right, for the AI assistant. So anyone that is unfamiliar with this, you'll notice within their account in the bottom right-hand corner, we have this little assistant. We've nicknamed it on the back end Edison. So what Edison does for you, one second, I gotta expand this and make this a little bit bigger. So what Edison does for you as well, you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? Your personal assistant may just do the heavy lifting for you as well. So you may get prompts like this, you get like prompts for clients that will say, "Hey, it looks like this client purchases every 163 days. It's been 141 days since their last purchase. Now would be a prime time to reach out to them." Right? And so this is what our new AI assistant is doing for folks like CD Peacock is it's generating these like leads. You kind of mentioned earlier this week too, it's also been really helpful for kind of those first time buyers, correct? Like what's been the feedback from your team when it's come to utilizing this AI assistant specifically?
Well, we've gotten some great feedback with that. Some of our sales associates have moved from different locations,
Mhm,
and as much as we want to and try very hard to do to keep up with those clients that from a different location, or you may not see them as often as you did before, that AI went back to their clients that they have not spoken to in years, and it rekindled rekindled that relationship.
mhm,
So it was pretty cool on that. And number two, even our chief, our CEO was on it last night. Something popped up for one of our top clients, and he responded to that immediately, which was pretty cool. So it really works for everyone, and it does have that option where you can skip and
mhm.
go to the next, because you may have already connected with that client maybe within a couple days ago. So it's very intuitive, very intuitive.
Absolutely. So yeah, so that's one of our new exciting features. We'll definitely that's going to be rolling out to almost everyone here in the next like couple weeks or so. So it's been really fun hearing those success stories from you and from your team. With that said, I do know we're kind of coming up on our 30-minute mark. So there was one other thing that we had chatted about earlier this week that I wanted to circle back on, and that's specifically around mass messaging. You had some interesting insights when it came to sending those bulk or those mass messages. So I just wanted to make sure that we covered that as well. If you want to take, a few minutes and just share, what has been your experience utilize mass messaging when it came to tag uploads and maybe some tips and tricks or things that you learned utilizing that feature.
Yeah, well, we have a new location that's opening it up. So I was just brainstorming ideas. How can we get a little bit more marketing out there? But instead of it being more of a huge corporate marketing, I wanted to find touch points where it comes from the sales associates. And and that's where mass messaging came into place. When I realized that, again, as we're all still learning this tool, not everyone was tagging. And I don't know if you want to share a little bit of what tagging means, Josh.
Yeah, sure. I'll go share my screen again real quick. Let me hop back over there and so specifically tagging, right? So on an individual client's profile right here, you have the ability to add tags. What this is typically utilized for with our other retailers is you may tag, maybe it's like a trunk show or specifically what level of client that you consider them, maybe different brands or things that they're really interested in, right? And then the benefit is that you can utilize these tags as a filtering tool, right? But to your point, what you're leading towards is if your associates aren't tagging clients, it's kind of hard to find these lists, right? So yeah, what's been your experience there?
Yeah, correct. So again, it was we weren't using the tags correctly. And so learning this now, obviously, while we wanted to do some mass messaging, I thought there's got to be an easier way. I was doing was I was pulling in a client list that made a purchase on a certain vendor, if you will, and then I was going to the customer and actually tagging them individually. And I was thinking, gosh, this is so time consuming. So I emailed Josh. I'm like, Josh, is there any way to integrate that information from Edge to our client book? And sure enough, he showed me a video. I love how you do that for me. And I figured out how to do that. I've learned so much between Excel and so thank you so much for all your learnings. But and figured out how to do that. And then we sent out a mass message. So it was so cool because there are so many different ways that you can do that. You can do it from the person in particular that you are sending the mass message from, or you can have it still come from every individual sales associate to their own client. So there's multiple ways to do that. And it's just really cool because you can kind of create your own, you can add a link, you can add a photo, you can set it up so it does have each client's individual name, each sales associate's name. It's just very cool, and it does take some of that weight off of that individual texting one-on-one, especially when you're just trying to get a big message out there.
Yep, exactly. So just getting the word out there. But to your point, making sure it's like personalized and catered to. So from I understand, right, you would pull those reports from the edge, simply upload it into Clientbook real quickly and just bulk tag them so that way you can utilize that tag as that messaging tool. So, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you've been getting some good responses that, especially with that new location that's opening up here in the next couple weeks. So, but yeah, it's yeah, I'm glad that you like those like little videos and stuff, but we try and make it as easy as possible. We definitely don't expect each, retailer to go in to individually tag them because that can take forever. With that said,
Sure.
some exciting things down the line. We are looking to, implementing some things, especially as we're implementing more and more AI to maybe automatically tag clients as they get pulled over from your different point of sale system. So that will be
Oh,
something
that would be
exciting down
great.
the line. But to your point though, it's pretty easy as is right now, correct?
Yeah. I mean,
Cool.
the only thing that I will say to follow up on that mass message is be prepared for a lot of responding, which is
Hmm.
good, which is great. I mean, that's the whole point of a mass message, right? But I think one of the mass messages that I sent out was 1,300. And
Hmm.
so there was quite a bit of responding to take place afterwards. And some take a couple of days to even respond, but you just want to make sure that you are checking that periodically because we don't want to keep a customer on hold.
Yep, absolutely. And that's typically why we also recommend not yeah, sending it to your entire client base. Like I don't even want to know how many clients are probably in your client book account. It's probably in the hundreds of thousands if that, but like yeah, so doing it to these small, even then you're still sending it to 1,200 or so. So yeah, letting the team know in advance, like, hey, we're going to send this mass message going to 1,200 of them, just make sure you're on guard because as clients are texting in, yeah, we don't want anyone slipping through the cracks.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
cool.
And it's also great that you have it kind of time stamped, if you will, to not go out at inappropriate times, which is great.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. So, with that said, and this is all stuff that we would be more than happy, anyone on this call that wants to schedule a meeting that we can go over any of these features. But yeah, you can schedule messages to go out on a certain days and certain times. And then with that said too, I think our cutoff point is like 7 p.m. So if you do happen to send a bulk or a mass message later in the evening at 7 p.m., it'll cut itself off and then resume the following morning because yeah, we don't want clients receiving messages at like 11 o'clock or midnight, and that could, obviously upset them. Like, why are you texting me so late at night? So, a lot of cool
Right.
features there. So, excuse me. So
Awesome.
with that said, so that is about 30 minutes into it. So I do believe, yeah, we have some questions, Keegan, that you want to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple questions in the Q&A feature that are coming through. Feel free to continue submitting those and we'll read them off to Celia. Someone asked, what suggestions do you have for training your team on using Clientbook when they're hesitant to adopt something new?
Sure. Every morning when I was a store director, we had what we called a powwow, or like a morning meeting before we opened the doors. So with that said, that was our main focus. We talked about it every single morning for weeks. And everyone had their client book out. We went through steps. We asked plenty of questions. We had people share success stories, what worked for them, and just really, again, what's that saying? It takes 21 times to create a behavior or something to that effect. So that's what we did. We literally did it every single day. We talked about it every single morning. I followed up with sales associates after they had a walk up, and just asked, okay, did you create a profile? Did you start an opportunity? I was that consistent, annoying, dripping faucet every single day. And we shared results every morning. Oh my gosh, okay guys, yesterday we opened 7 new profiles, and I see that we started 5 new opportunities. Shout out to those that did that. And it was just really being that dripping faucet every single day, and I still am.
Yeah. Yeah. And to go along with that, that's something we usually talk about in our onboarding. We always approach it as a crawl, walk, run approach as well. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, right? It's just making sure it's top of mind, bringing it up on a daily basis, but then also understanding that like there is a lot to Clientbook. There's a lot of features. And that's honestly something that we're probably guilty of is when we're onboarding new retailers, we're so excited to share all these cool features that are going to be a big benefit that we tend to maybe overload too many things at one time. And so that's something we want, that's like a self-reflection for us to do better at. Maybe just focusing on those key features that we know are going to be of high value, benefit in the beginning, and then slowly introduce some of those other features, right? Like I can't imagine like sales opportunities is something that, yeah, Sylia, we've been working on for a couple months now. And I think we're finally like in a good spot, with utilizing sales opportunities, but it wasn't something that like we had it up and running and ready to go day one. It did take some time to implement and make sure, yeah, we're bringing it up on a daily basis with your team. So
Yeah, I think that's super important. It can't be a one and done. We can't just talk about it once and then not talk about it for days or until next week. It literally has to be talked about every single morning, and it has to be kind of a see it, say it as well, until everyone just kind of gains that habit, if you will. Anytime anyone would go to answer the phone, even, I would see them grab a piece of paper and a pen. I took away all pads and papers around all phones, like literally put it right into Clientbook. Any conversation you're having with a customer, make sure they have a profile, make sure that that is the accurate phone number. Let them know we will call them back, but start that opportunity right then and there, because even a phone call can be a sale, right? So
yeah.
just talking to them in those ways. And again, no paper trail whatsoever. There, you won't find any in our stores any longer.
I don't know why I just had this mental image that just made me laugh of you like traditionally you guys have like big safes, right? I just imagine in your safe, like that's where you put all of like your pens and papers, right? It's like in a secret safe. We're locking this away, like no one's using.
Yes,
That's funny, but
yes.
that's some of the things that you have to do, right? It's taking someone to also own it. That's one thing that I'll personally call out as well that I'm appreciative of you, Silly, and what you've done like for your team is like you've taken ownership of it and said like, hey, I'm going to run with Clientbook and make sure that my team is implementing it, right? So I regretfully can't clone myself or I can't be in, Chicago every single day to like sit down with your staff. And so I'm pretty far removed from that process. So having a champion in someone like Philly that's there every day, making sure it's being utilized or, you know, questions are being answered. And yeah, as concerns come up, making sure that they're coming to me or to my support team that we can help answer them. So, but yeah, taking ownership of it too is at least from my observation has been a tremendous benefit. So
Yeah.
cool.
Awesome. So Emily from Schiffman's is asking, in addition to using tags for client assignments, do you prefer outreaching customers based off of associate assignments or assigning customers to associates with the tagging system? So it looks
That's a
like,
really,
yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. So typically how it works, like Emily, though, is so it specifically when it comes to like mass messaging or even like automated messages, right? Those messages would come from the assigned sales associate. I think, yeah, we have, especially in the early stages, what you may want to do or what some of our other retailers do just to make life a little bit easier, they may add a tag to themselves so that way they can use as a filtering tool. But ultimately, what you would want to do is delete those tags. Like you would want to make sure that all those clients that you're tagged to are assigned to you. And then once that they're assigned to that proper sales associate, we would want to delete those tags. And ideally, all communication moving forward would come from the assigned associate, not necessarily who's tagged. So, and that's something we can follow up with you. I know you've been working closely with Max, so we'll make sure to follow up with you on that regard. But yeah, you'd want it coming from the assigned associate effectively.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think that would be the goal. We were just using because we have brand managers, and we wanted to just kind of introduce those brand managers as we are moving into a new location. But other than that, we would normally have it by the assigned sales associate.
Perfect. Thank you. We have another question that is saying, I'm considering switching to the Elite plan. I think this is going to be for both Celia and Josh. What do you like about the extra features, and is the AI part of the Elite plan?
For us personally, as I mentioned earlier, we are, I guess, straddling the fence on that. What they do love about the Elite package is the kiosk mode, that we were able to add more, especially the address was kind of um, a, a an obstacle, if you will, because originally, if you have Clientbook, you know that it really only has name, phone number, email, and then the birthday, anniversary, and then of course you could tag. That obstacle of not having that address component right there what is a nice upgrade to having that Elite package. We also find super useful like I said, a lot of the team, it's 50-50. A lot of the team does like not having all the noise of being able to see what everybody else is messaging and connecting with their clients with. It streamlines their to-dos per day, and they can find their messages a lot easier. They prefer it that way. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Josh.
Yeah, certainly. So with that said, yeah, there's quite a few features that are part of the Elite plan. So we touched up on a few of them. So one big one that was huge for a lot of our retailers, right, is being able to customize this kiosk a little bit more, especially capturing, say, address, different things like that. So there's a customizable kiosk mode. Another really big key component that is part of the Elite plan that I also love as well is utilizing, so yes, the AI assistant is part of the Elite plan. There's also another big aspect of the AI that we've incorporated in here is when you go to message a client, part of the Elite plan, you have this little AI icon right here. And what that does is it will generate messages for you. So let's actually, I can do this live right now if we want to. So let's say Cedar texts into the store and says, my wife birthday is coming up. Do you have any ideas for me? Right. So let's say a client, they message in and they come up with whatever that message is, right? What this AI assistant will do for you, this AI component, is that we'll look at your conversation history with the client. And if you don't want to waste your time, again, time is money, especially around busy holiday seasons. Anyone on this call will attest it's just like it gets busy. So maybe taking 5 minutes just to go through and answer messages can seem a little bit daunting for us. So we've implemented this in here. So what this AI assistant does is it will generate those responses for you. So you'll see it'll think for a few seconds right here, and the response that it will generate is something that we find more engaging. Our retailers that utilize this specific feature, they find their responses are better and they are able to engage more with their clients. Again, circling back to what Celia said, we ultimately want you to deepen and develop deeper relationships with your clients. So instead of just a quick one or two word response, you'll notice the AI assistant's like, absolutely, more than happy to help you find a perfect gift for your wife's birthday. May I know if she has any preferences for certain types of jewelry? Is there specific brands that she admires? I can also help you um, choose based on her style and taste, right? So instead of just saying like, sure, I'll love to help out, it's going to ask more engaging questions like, yeah, what brands? Like, what does she like? Gold, silver, is she diamonds or pearls? Like, those are the type of responses that you'll see there that will help you and your team save time by letting the assistant just kind of help you out in that regard. So, and one thing I do want to mention a little bit too, so this AI assistant absolutely will be part of that elite plan. One thing I do want to mention for anyone on this call is, so within the different plans of Clientbook, we have, a signature plan as well. Uh, we are planning on releasing a portion of the AI assistant to our signature plan retailers to at least start generating some of those leads, but it won't generate all the leads that are available as part of the elite plan. So that's something we can follow up with each of you individually. We'll be sending a follow-up email with a survey as well. But if you need any help or any context of what's in the elite plan versus maybe your signature plan, whatever that may be, we can certainly sit down and talk about it and maybe talk about some of these other elite features that can be a benefit to you and your team. So
Awesome. We have a few additional questions. Stephanie's asking about, I believe this is going to be more for Josh and myself, but she's asking about sending messages to certain groups.
mhm.
There's an important distinction to make between auto messages and mass messages. Stephanie's asking specifically, how can you exclude specific people? So I think with a specific question like that, Stephanie, it is the best course of action to connect with one of us on the CSM team to go into some of the more nuances between both of those features. But ultimately, when it comes down to mass messaging, you can filter by various criteria. Unfortunately, on purchase history, that is not a criteria you can filter mass messaging based off of. But I do believe that this is a good segue into mass tag uploads. So Josh, you maybe want to touch on mass tag uploads really quickly.
Sure. And I know
Yep.
we're kind of coming up on time as well, so I definitely want to be respectful to your time, Silly, as well. If you need to hop off, do you still have a few minutes, or are you okay sticking on the phone? Okay, perfect. So, um, yeah. So to answer your question specifically, when it comes to tagging, there isn't like an exclusion tag feature. So typically, when you're sending a mass message, you want to bulk tag your clients and say these are the clients we want to send a mass message to. So if there are clients within that tag that you don't want to send a message to, typically what we recommend is redoing that tag or maybe just removing that tag off of them if you know it's just like a handful of them. If you're getting upwards into like the hundreds or so, that's when it would be beneficial maybe just repulling a different tag list and utilizing that as a tag feature. Um, so yeah, it's something that we can connect with you after this call as well. And we did have another question that came through from an anonymous attendee. So this is, I would love to connect with you because it sounds like this may be like a one-off issue, but they were asking, they're on the elite plan and they're having issues. So you're tagging clients to an associate, but it seems like it's reassigning to the previous person. So I guess, Celia, I want to ask you, is that something that you've noticed that maybe like you're assigning associates and it's like reassigning them back? Or this sounds like a one-off thing to me, and I would love to know who this is so that way we can dive into it a little bit deeper. But Celia, while you're here, have you noticed that on your end?
No, I don't know if it's exactly that same journey, but I know Josh, you and I have kind of talked about just double checking in the profile that we have the correct information in there, such as the preferred store, and then just making sure that the sales associate is assigned in the right location as well. And if they are assigned to multiple sales associates, it does take a weird journey, if you will, as to what shows up in the inbox if you have the elite package, and what you are able to respond to. So those are all things that are a little bit of a hiccup, if you will, that Josh and I talked about, and trying to find different paths on how we can make that a little bit more seamless. But we do have to keep in mind that a client can have multiple assigned salespeople, and that might be some of the reason for that.
Absolutely. So I don't know if we'll figure out who you are, Anonymous, but we'll try and follow up with you because yeah, we would love to maybe deep into that a little bit deeper just to kind of see what maybe is happening. It sounds unique because we have quite a few clients that are on our elite package, and this is the first I'm hearing of something like that. So yeah, we would love to maybe connect with you after this call and just kind of go from there. So, but that looks like those were all the questions that we had. Thank you again so much, Sylia, for joining us and joining us on our very first Champions webinar. And so, yeah, I never know how to end these things, and this is our first time as well. So I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Anyone else that's still on this call, be on the lookout. We'll be sending follow-up emails. We'll also be sending a survey to everyone here just to kind of give us some insights, maybe things you want to see in future webinars, different things like that. If you want me to stop talking less, please throw that into the suggestions, whatever it may be. But again, yeah, Silly, I couldn't be more appreciative of your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Hope
Bye,
everyone has a great
everyone.
afternoon and see you next month.
Happy
Goodbye.
selling.
Bye.